just when we thought we had some good games coming up, Trevor Lawrence has a knee injury. So, look, Tyson, let's try and make this show interesting as possible. I think we're just going to build like Trevor Lawrence is in and not risk anything stupid here. How does that sound?
If Trevor Lawrence isn't playing, I'm not playing. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, Monday night was pretty interesting, man. Gallup, we just needed a little bit more out of Gallup there. We were close. I think a lot of us in the Discord were super close to hitting that one. Shout out, before we get into this matchup, I want to shout out Tron in the Discord. He, I think he split the $50 single entry with like 3 people or 2 people, I think it was duped by. Yeah, 3 dupes. Gallup at captain, Herbert, Allen, Prescott, Lamb, Cooks. I felt like we were super close on that one, man. I feel like a lot of people were super close, but that was a pretty nice looking slate. How'd you do?
Yeah, man. Again, I was right, super close as well. I think Gallup not quite getting there definitely impacted me. For a minute there, I was in first. Ended up finishing top 1-2%. Profited on the night, but you know, sometimes it just doesn't go your way. Gallup just wasn't able to come down with those. At least he had the opportunities, though, right?
Yeah.
Like it's better than. I guess I'd rather have him not catch the ball than just not get the guy right at all.
Like, I'm honestly not even mad. Like, it means we were onto something. You know, like he dropped the ball twice. Okay, you know that sucks, but it's not like they targeted him one time in the game and we just didn't even have a shot. You know. All right. And look, just to mention, like these $50 and these like $100 single entries, like if you can pull it off, like I would rather, for a slate where I'm not super comfortable with or actually reverse that, a slate where I am super comfortable and I have a good idea and I want to hand build a lineup, maybe doing one of these $50 or $100 single entries as opposed to getting into a mini max or a multiple 20 maxes. I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of these like $50, $100 single entries? I really like them, even those like 222 or 333 ones.
Yeah, I mean, look, I even recommend the $12, like the hundos and just the smaller contest size in general. And I think it's easier to get a little more excited about the $50 to $100 single entries, just because I mean, look at that payout up top, right? And you're talking about maybe 120 entrants or something along those lines. And probably exaggerating a little bit for that.
It's 1,100 for that one, for that matchup, for that one.
Yeah, 1,100. Like that makes a huge difference, and I think to people that are newer to playing, if you can stomach like only winning only in air quotes, 150 to first, like it's really worth doing a smaller $3 single entry with maybe 2,000 entries. You don't have to you don't have to get as crazy to compete with all these other lineups. The more entrants there are, the more you have to be perfect in your build to be able to separate yourself. So like this, like shout out to Tron. I don't want to minimize anything here, but like this isn't that crazy of a build, right? Except for maybe the 3 wide receivers and fading Eckler. But from a cash standpoint, like this was probably fairly chalky and maybe the larger $5 single entry, for example, right? Because that's closer to a GPP type contest. So look, man, like I think it's smart to take advantage of these contests and just really focus on contest size to really help pad your bankroll a little bit.
Absolutely. Sometimes spending all your energy on like one lineup build that you really love and just sweating that out sometimes is a lot more fun than having 150 lineups in the mini max and you're just like, I don't know where I'm at. All right, let's get into this matchup. Let's transition a little bit. So, look, we have to talk about the elephant in the room here is Trevor Lawrence. It looks like he should play. Like today's Wednesday night, we're recording this. We waited an additional day to record just to get as much information as possible when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. And based on what we're seeing, it kind of looks like he should play. And based off what people are saying in press conferences and things like that, I don't know. What are your thoughts on him playing? And if he doesn't play, dude, I don't know that I want to even touch this slate. Honestly, I might just do a smaller single entry or something and walk away, right?
Yeah, man. Like I think it's going to be really easy for people to hype up CJ Beathard, but Beathard, whatever the hell his name was. But like, man, like let's not overemphasize what he did in San Francisco and forget about his weapons there, right? We've been talking about that on all the San Francisco shows for Jimmy G's entire career. Like you shouldn't fail there. So I just don't want to play probably the slate at all if Beathard's in. But that said, man, like. I'm still not 100% confident in Trevor Lawrence's ability if he comes back kind of on a sprained knee. Like that's a weird injury to kind of try and play through. A sprained knee on a short week, right? Like didn't they just have 2 weeks in London or some shit too? So like it's been a weird couple of weeks and a weird month for Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. So I don't know, man. Like I do think that this is one that the Saints probably should win if their offensive line decides to I'd show up, I guess. But I think that's really kind of the question. Like, what version of the Saints are we going to get? Their defense is good, but that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Yeah, that's the biggest story here is the Jaguars have played an okay schedule. They're 4-2. I don't quite know if we know who this team is yet, though. They really have underwhelmed in the pass game. Their offense has not been great. And you got a guy like Trevor Lawrence who, with the knee injury being questionable, how much is that going to affect his productivity? This game is a 40 total. Now, if we get closer to the game and this goes up to 42 or something like that, when Trevor Lawrence is announced in, if he is, then we kind of know why it's at 40. But I honestly think this is going to hit the under potentially and be a lower scoring game, because both of these offenses haven't been very impressive, and the Saints defense is ranked 6th overall. Like this defense is pretty damn good. So thoughts on the Saints defense and this matchup overall? This is a -1 1-point spread here for the Saints at home in the Dome. This feels like this could go either way, but I'm leaning that the Saints are going to win this one. What do you think?
I don't disagree with you. I just really think it comes down to offensive line play, and then Trevor Lawrence is tough, obviously. If Trevor Lawrence is healthy, I think the Jaguars are good enough in general to really start kind of finding their identity. To your point, I just don't know if they've been consistent enough so far. But again, their season's been weird. They played in London, and I don't know, like, man, that I feel like that has more of an impact than some of the teams are letting on. So I think it's worth noting there, but I do think that the Saints will probably end up winning this one. Their defense has just been, if their offense was a little any better, right? Like we might be talking about the Saints and like how good of a team they are in the NFC. I don't know.
Yeah. So the Jags beat the Colts twice. They beat the Falcons and they beat the Bills in London. And they lost to the Texans and the Chiefs. So this isn't like the craziest schedule, but they 2 wins against the Colts, a loss against the Chiefs, and then the Texans. Both teams lost to the Texans here. But if you look at New Orleans' schedule, dude, they have the last rated strength of schedule right now. Tennessee Titans, Panthers, Packers, Buccaneers, Patriots, Texans. And if you look at the offenses they've faced, hasn't been super impressive. They were able to stop Green Bay there, but that they actually gave up. They ended up losing that game in the fourth quarter. This defense is rated high, but how much do you think that has to do with they kind of have a really easy schedule as of now? And look at these offensive they face. There's nothing too impressive here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know though. I mean, I think the Houston Texans are a little bit better than everybody thought they were going to be, except for us if you watch some of the best ball shows that we did. But whatever. Yeah, so like I think the Texans are pretty good, and they still did a decent job holding their own there. Again, I mean, it's the Saints, man. I think their defensive line is solid enough. We've seen enough consistency out of them for 6 weeks to really kind of believe in them a little bit. Holding professional teams to under 17 points is a big deal. And I know the Patriots suck, but a shutout's a shutout, man. Getting 0 points in the NFL matters.
It's true, man. It's true. The biggest differences we see here. So the Jaguars run blocking, they're rated 27th according to PFF, going up against the Saints run defense at rated 8th. And then you see the Jaguars overall coverage defense is rated 3rd, going up against the Saints pass offense. It seems like both of these teams are kind of close. What do you think the biggest difference is going to be in the trenches or in the secondary? Who do you think has the biggest advantage in this game? Probably the Saints defense overall. But what about that Saints offensive line? We'll get to injuries here in a minute, man. That Saints offensive line could get destroyed by Jacksonville, even though they don't have a great pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, what is the saying? Like a great quarterback makes a great wide receiver. Like, but I think the same thing applies here. A bad defensive line will make a bad offensive line will make some great defenders, right? So, like, this is a good opportunity for the Jags defense to get back on track. And how's their pass defense here? Right? Where do you have it? Saints, their
Jaguars defense. Or Saints. Yeah. Their pass.
Jags overall coverage.
Coverage rating.
Jags overall coverage is at the bottom. Is 3rd, right? So, like when you're looking to supplement your pass rush, right? A great way to do that is against the bad offensive line and solid defenders in the secondary. So again, this is a good opportunity for that Jags defense to get right.
I'm sure that rating was greatly helped by 3 picks last week against Gardner Minshew. All right, let's look at our injuries. We got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
All right, so the big news, obviously, Trevor Lawrence questionable. We got to wait and see what's going on with that. All right, jump in the Discord or just have any sort of cell phone connection. You're going to be able to know if he's in or not. Zay Jones is out for Week 7. That's pretty important. Trevor Lawrence told reporters today that he's optimistic. I don't know what that means. This could all be a smokescreen, and they know that Beathard is starting. I don't know. Let's just keep an eye on that. But the other side is where I really want to talk about things here. Ryan Ramczyk, concussion, the starting right tackle for the Saints, who has the best rated pass rush, pass offensive rush. What the hell is the word I'm looking for here? He's the
pass
best.
Block.
Yeah, there it is. Block. That's the word I'm looking for. He's the best pass blocker on the team, and he's out. Their guard, James Hurst, is also out. Their starting guard. So now you're looking at a team who's, short-staffed, and I don't know how this is going to work out for them, man. I really don't. It's something to really talk about. How does that affect Kamara? How does that affect some of these pass catchers? We got to talk about that. Jamal Williams listed questionable coming back from that injury. Dude, what do we do if Jamal Williams is active for this game? First of all, do you want to get any of him just in case if he's able to get one of these random Jamal Williams goal line touchdowns? And then how do you think that affects Kamara's usage?
Yeah, man, I don't know if it's going to affect Kamara's usage. We're just seeing that he's just dominating in volume in general. He's getting a shitload of targets and he's getting a shitload of rushing attempts. But I do think that Jamal Williams might get overlooked a little bit. And to be honest, like the way that they're starting to price kickers, like they're fucking tight ends.
Yeah, what the hell?
I don't know, man. Like I'm going to be okay playing a guy like Jamal Williams. I mean, he's 4,200, right? Like at this point, like we're going to, I think he's 4,200. We're starting to get to an area where we're punting again in the 4K range because we're the way they price kickers. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. I think we can figure that out when we get to building. But I think Jamal Williams is a guy that they're going to continue to work in, and he's better probably with as a backup to Alvin Kamara than just being the lead guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think both of them are better when they're both playing. Juwan Johnson, and we haven't seen that yet this year, so we're about to find out. Juwan Johnson's out. You got some questionables with Tyrann Mathieu, Lonnie Johnson, Demario Davis. So there's some interesting questionable defensive players here that we need to keep an eye on. If a lot of these dudes are out, man, we need to maybe re-strategize and maybe, up these pass catchers for Jacksonville. All right, let's get into this breakdown, dude. Let's do it, man. Let me switch all this fun stuff over here, and let's get into it. Break it down. All right, so these quarterbacks are dirt cheap, dude. Derek Carr is in Ben DiNucci range. He's at 8,800. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence, 9,600. Why are these guys priced so low? And the kicker is 5,200 on this slate. Why is Derek Carr 8,800? I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring this out. Is it simply based off of the Vegas total and the algorithm just spit this out? I don't know what to think about this.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's the total and just the fact that this offensive line is so bad. But what people forget about Derek Carr is he still has an excellent deep ball, and he has guys to go get the ball. He has Michael Thomas, who what are they, third in average depth of target? That might be inflated because what's his name is up the field getting 50-yard bombs every other. Yeah, Rashid Shaheed. And then I mean Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, like they have the weapons on this offense, right? I'm not going to sit here and convince you, right? Derek Carr was interesting to me if I thought he was going to be 9,400, 8,800. I don't know, man. Like I'm with it. I'll take a risk on it.
I honestly,
Trevor Lawrence, I think the only issue with him is just his knee, but hopefully that softens his ownership because, as you pointed out, man, that's a lot of injuries on the Saints defense. If they're missing Tyrann Mathieu, they're missing all those guys in the secondary too. Like it might be worth playing the over and going with both quarterbacks as a core part of the build.
And look, we're going to see Trevor Lawrence get better and better this year, in my opinion. Coming into this, I thought he was a very good MVP candidate with his odds. And I do think that this is a situation as the year goes on, he's going to slowly start to light it up. I don't know if that is this game, but I do really think that this team is dangerous on the offensive side. We just really haven't seen it a ton yet. Trevor Lawrence is $9,600, dude. I think both of these guys are cheap enough. For cash, you should play. For cash or single entry, you should definitely play both of these dudes in the flex at minimum. Derek Carr at captain's interesting at that price. I'm going to lean more towards some of these skill players, though, for my captain options. And there's some middle range dudes that I think that, could play better at captain. But I think you're going to have to make a tough decision. If you play one of these top price dudes like Kamara or ETN, you might not be able to fit two quarterbacks in without really fading some of these other pass catchers that you want to get involved. All right, let's go to running back. Let's start with New Orleans. Screw it. So Kamara is 10.4K. He's the most expensive on the slate. Jamal Williams, questionable, 4,200. You got Kendry Miller at 1,800. So if Jamal Williams is out, I'm interested in Kendry Miller at 1,800 a little bit. He doesn't get involved a ton, but they're using Kamara. They're doing exactly the opposite of what they did last year. They're really using Kamara, maybe just at a pure necessity. Maybe if Jamal Williams gets back in, maybe that evens out a little bit. I hope not. But Kamara at 10.4K, I mean, this dude's third in targets already, and he's missed half the games. He's absolutely tearing it up with his usage. He hasn't been super efficient. He hasn't gotten the end zone a ton, but we know he's going to get targeted. Last week, Jacksonville going up against Indy, dude, I think they had like 16 targets for those guys out of the backfield. So I don't know if that was a game plan specifically to that game or if that's a weakness that we're seeing from Jacksonville, and maybe we see some Kamara passes out of the backfield. You have to assume that he's going to get at least 5 or 6 targets, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, so let's put it this way. Since he's been back, he's had 21 points, 18 points, 17 points. And I rounded down on all those. He's had 11 rush attempts, 22 and 19. And then he's been targeted 14 times, 3 times, and 8 times. And his lowest
14
targets was against the Patriots when they were just whooping that ass. So, but there's no reason to pass it to him. So I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, Alvin Kamara is my guy. I think that he's probably the best captain option on the slate. Like I'm not normally a guy who's going to overload running backs, but we're looking at old Alvin Kamara. This is insane usage in the past game, man.
Yeah.
Like he's getting, I don't even know how they have enough targets to spread her out because Michael Thomas had a shitload of targets.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill had a shitload of targets, and Alvin Kamara still ended up with 8-9 targets. So look, man, like 10-4, like that's still probably too cheap for the amount that he's getting involved. Like his projection right now, through SaberSim is lower than any output he's had yet this season. So like, let's just put that into perspective. So look, I think you might, it's worthy being a little concerned about how he gets used with Jamal Williams back. But to be honest with you, I think it gives him a little bit more success in the lightning and thunder type sets, right? So maybe it makes Alvin Kamara a little bit more explosive.
Yeah.
Now here's the key piece. You nailed it on the head, right? He doesn't have any touchdowns. You add a touchdown to any one of those performances, and like, I mean, he's RB1 pretty much since week 2 or week 3, right?
Yeah.
Like it's pretty crazy to think about. So just remember that. I'll probably have 1,000% of him. And then Kendra Miller at 1,800, I really am. I might even be a little bit interested, even if Jamal Williams is still back. I think he's an interesting value guy. And I think they're going to continue to work him into the offense, even with Jamal Williams being back. And there's no reason to rush Jamal in tomorrow night if they're potentially questionable. So I don't know. It's worth keeping an eye on.
But even if Jamal's active, I mean, he could be on a snap count, and we just don't know about it. You know, they're going to need Jamal Williams this year. So why rush him back in week 7? Which, by the way, week 7, holy shit! All right, halfway through our best ball into tournaments or into the playoff weeks. All right, let's get to Jacksonville here. Travis Etienne, 10.2K, expensive AF. Tank Bigsby, 2,200. Dearness Johnson, 1,200. JaMychal Hasty, 200. So look, Etienne is the man this year. He's crushed. I thought going into this season when I was doing my best ball drafts that I'd get more Tank Bigsby because I thought that maybe it could be a 50-50 type role. That's definitely not happening this year. Etienne is the guy, and he's the workhorse, and they're really using him. Now, this year overall, he's crushed it. But, you know, I rewatched that game last week. You know, on paper, he had a lot of fantasy points. He had 2 touchdowns. He looked pretty good. He only averaged 3.1 yards per carry on 18 carries. So do I think that I'm not going to play him because he had just like a slightly below average yards per carry last week? No, that's not what I'm saying. My point here is this is a tough matchup, and he's 10.2K. What is it going to take for Travis Etienne to get there in this game? Is he going to need another 2 touchdowns? Is he going to need, you know, multiple catches out of the backfield and 100 yards rushing? What do we do with Etienne, dude? I know that he's going to be very popular. He's probably going to be the 3rd or 4th highest owned guy on the slate. This isn't a situation where I'm going to fade him at all, like for sure. But maybe I might be a little bit under the field in the flex with him. Thoughts?
Yeah, man. So like, I think it's an interesting discussion either way, because the first thing you got to do is like, I love Alvin Kamara, right? I think that he's just a guy I want to get exposure to. But what am I going to do? I'm going to play both running backs from both teams. And I think this is an interesting slate to kind of consider doing something like that, because these aren't guys that are just getting involved in the rushing game, right? They get involved in the pass game. So I think it might be a little bit more I guess normal to maybe fade one if you're playing the other, right? Because people don't necessarily want that negative correlation. But like, it's just so hard for me to not be interested in Travis Etienne. But he leads the NFL in total touches, right? He's just getting involved. And like, I saw somebody on Twitter the other day, they said, I think maybe we all just ended up drafting Tank Bigsby because his first name's Tank. And like that might be what happened, right? Like, because Etienne is just absolutely dominating everything. Like, and now that I think back on it, I'm like, yeah, dude, I guess that might be right. So like, look, it's just hard. I know what we saw last week wasn't necessarily great, but like, I think it's worth considering him some. I do think his ownership will probably end up being sub 40% just because people will prefer Kamara and won't necessarily want to chase that negative correlation. But like, I really think you can consider playing both, just because, I mean, let's be honest, they're both explosive as hell. Like, if they're at their prime, if they're at their optimal, like they're busting off 70-yard runs. Like, that's what they do to an offense. So I don't think you're too crazy to stack them. If you're doing like Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb, you'd be a fucking psycho. But this is a little bit different. It's a much more paced up running back, I guess.
I wish I'd have got as much Tank Dell as I did Tank Bigsby, though. All right, let's go to wide receiver. So Calvin Ridley at 8,400. We know what he is capable of. He's been kind of up and down, but we know he's a true number one. But sometimes he's been eliminated from some of these games. Christian Kirk started off slow, he's moved into, well, maybe he's a number one. He's 8K. He's getting a pretty damn good projection. He's popping off the page when it comes to projections and Sims. Zay Jones is out. So to me, that more benefits Evan Ingram as far as you're going to get some Strange and Ingram on the field at the same time. Ingram will be lining up in the slot. Zay Jones is out. So yes, you'll get a little bit of Jamal Agnew. You'll get a little bit of Tim Jones. Those guys are $400 and $200. That's pretty damn good. I'm going to get to some Jamal Agnew because obviously we know what he's capable of in the return game, as well as they're going to run some gadget plays with Jamal Agnew at least one time in this game. So if he gets a touchdown or if he gets a couple receptions, great. At $400, we've seen how powerful the $200, the $400, the $600 guys are. I was in the top like 5 or 10 lineups for that Monday Night Football game with the dude who had -1 point because he was $600. So my point is with Jamal Agnew, you don't need a ton out of him. You don't need a ton out of Tim Jones. But more importantly, what are we doing with Calvin Ridley versus Christian Kirk? Can we play them together? Are we going to be able to afford to play them together? Probably not. You're probably going to have to choose one or the other. And who do you prefer?
I think I might be leaning a little bit more towards Christian Kirk. It might sound a little bit crazy, but he is leading the team in targets, which is, again, kind of surprising, just a little bit to a slow start. But I think these are both also really interesting, just captain options, right? I know that Kamara is probably my favorite, and then you got ETN, but at 8,400 and 8K, they do make for interesting options to kind of give you a little bit of flexibility in pricing. And with both quarterbacks being as cheap as they are, you might be able to build pretty nicely with both quarterbacks, one of these guys, and then one of the running backs too. So I think we'll try that when we build. But I think that's the way you want to do it. You want to get probably a decent amount of exposure to both, just because they're both evenly priced. You can I don't want to bitch out on this, but like you can kind of just build the same lineups with them and rotate that position in if you're comfortable with it. Yeah. You shouldn't be maxing your salary anyways, because again, like that's going to make it just all the more chalky of that. So like I think it just giving yourself the flexibility to have a 1v1 with both those guys is fine. But to your point, like Tim Jones and Jamal Agnew are both in consideration. Tim Jones has like, just to put it into perspective, he's like 15 more total snaps than Zay Jones does on the season.
Wow.
Now that does have to do with Zay Jones's injuries, obviously, but like, these are guys that are getting on the field. I think Agnew is 6 or 7 targets, and then Tim Jones 5. So it's nothing crazy, but for $200 and $400, those are guys that are definitely worth considering.
All right, let's go over to the other side here, New Orleans. So Chris Olave 9K, Michael Thomas 7K, Rashid Shaheed 5K. That's kind of all the guys we need to talk about. I mean, you got Keith Kirkwood down here at $200, maybe, but Olave, Thomas, Shaheed. I think all these guys are in play. Who's your favorite guy here? I mean, I had super high hopes for Olave, and I still do. He's leading the team in targets. He's leading the team in catches and yards. So Olave is the clear guy here. But dude, Michael Thomas at 7K is very interesting, and then we know Rashid Shaheed at 5K. He's a big play dude. Getting him at captain in a couple lineups is probably going to be necessary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Chris Olave is probably your guy more for GPPs. You can put him in captain, put him in flex, and just kind of make him a main piece of the offense if you want. I think you're kind of deciding between him and Kamara if you're at some point, or maybe him and Carr, right? And you stack them together, or him and Kamara instead of and fade Carr. So that's kind of what you're looking at. Olave is going to have a breakout game here too at some point. Does he have a touchdown on the year yet? I don't know that he does. So he's just another guy that's really kind of just a breakout game away from just busting open. But look, Michael Thomas at 7K, again, I don't know if we have some flexibility on pricing in this slate, so I don't know if we're necessarily going to need a guy like him, but at 7K, I think that he's just an ultimate cash game target, right? If you want to play a single entry or, a double up, he's a guy, 7K, we know he's going to get 7 to 8 targets, he's going to get 7 to 8 receptions, and he's going to have 70 to 80 yards. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Like they're just throwing the ball to him until he's too tired, and then they're getting Chris Olave involved, and then Taysom Hill involved in 2 minutes. It's just been a very interesting offense. They're throwing the shit out of the ball. So like in PPR, you just have to take advantage of it. They're gonna get a bunch of catches, man, and at 7K, like you got to consider that.
Yeah, and I think the key here with Michael Thomas is if he gets a touchdown, I mean, I think you're going to need him because I think he's going to get involved.
Yeah.
He's good. Like you said, he's going to get his 5 catches for 50 yards. But if he gets in the end zone, that is the slate breaker right there, in my opinion, because he's 7K. Him at captain, I know it sounds a little crazy, but for tournaments, dude, I think it's a great option, in my opinion, because of his price. And I think he has a decent floor. Shahid, obviously, this guy was buried on the bench years ago. I've always had high hopes for him. I'm glad to see him as a solid number 3. I think you got to get plenty of him because he's 5K. But we know what he's all about. We know that he's kind of boomer bust. So if you put a guy in at 5K, I'd rather play him over the damn kicker, though. You know, I know that this is a lower total game, and some of these offenses have not always impressed this year. So the kickers can be kind of beneficial. But Rashid Shaheed at 5K, I'd rather play him over Groupie any day. All right, tight ends. So Taysom Hill, we got Juwan Johnson out. So Taysom Hill's the guy, but he's mainly running in the slot. You got Foster Moreau at 3,200. Taysom Hill 6,200. You got Jimmy Graham back from the dead at $600. So Jimmy Graham's always like a random touchdown away from breaking the slate at $600, but you need a touchdown out of him. Maybe he gets one target in the middle of the field, and that's not going to do it for you. You're going to need a touchdown out of him. So maybe, you know, there's some value play there that I do like, but I'm not getting to more than probably 10%. Foster Moreau is interesting. I don't really think he's necessary on this slate, but Taysom Hill at 6,200. If you look at the box score last week, he had 8 targets in that game. 5 of those targets came in the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half. So it's a little deceiving. So, you know, he's going to get involved in those situations, and maybe you can get some garbage time from him. But 6,200 for Taysom Hill, that's kind of interesting. Where are you going with this? I mean, look, he's been a showdown darling for how many years now? Now it's to the point where we were first off where we were playing him and nobody else was playing him and nobody else was playing him. We finally got a touchdown. Then everybody was playing him. Now nobody's playing him. We're back down in that valley. Can we play this dude at captain?
No, I don't think so. Like if you want to, if you just want to do it to hedge, I think that's fine. But yeah, let's not pretend like Sean Payton's there. Like this offense just really isn't that good right now. They're force feeding the targets, and like that volume is something to be considered. But like we need to consider this team more on like the Jameis Winston side of fantasy success than the Sean Payton side of fantasy success, right? They're getting production because they're throwing 50 times a game. So look, if you think that Taysom Hill is going to have 2 touchdowns this game, or if you think that he's going to continue to have 8 to 10 targets, right, and 7 receptions, then at his price, you need to consider him like you would a normal 6,200 wide receiver or whatever. So like at that point, like I think he's playable. But look, man, I think that there's other ways to go on this slate. I like the way that some of these other price guys are. Michael Thomas is $800 more.
Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed is $1,200 cheaper.
Yeah.
So like that's probably where I'm going.
All right, let's go to Jacksonville. So Evan Ingram is listed as a tight end, but we all know the deal here, especially with Zay Jones out. We've seen Evan Ingram in the slot, and you see Brendan Strange, you see Luke Farrell, you see these guys on the field at the same time. That's why Brendan Strange was on the field last week to get a touchdown. And he was on the field a decent amount. What was the number? He was on the field 53% of the time. Luke Farrell was on the field 45% of the time. Evan Ingram 75% of the time. Well, do the math. They all play the same position, and they're not running a lot of 3 tight end sets. So Evan Ingram is a wide receiver. Let's just face it. 5,800. He had an incredible one-handed catch in that game. I think he has huge upside. He's 5,800. Captain option for him is good because I think he should be priced a little higher if you really think about it. Thoughts on these guys? Brendan Strange is $1,000, dude. I know he had a touchdown last week, so maybe he'll be on people's radar. Maybe his ownership will be inflated. I'm not super interested in him because I think there's other guys that you can get to. But Evan Ingram, where are you going with him?
Yeah, I mean, like he's actually tied with Calvin Ridley for second in targets on the team. So, look, at 5,800, I think you got to consider him again. I think you know, you need to be mindful of the guys that are around. Obviously, you have that wonderful $5,200 kicker, just so nearby if you want to punt a little bit more. But you know, you got 5K Rashid Shaheed, and then you know, 7K a little bit more Michael Thomas. But I definitely think that Evan Ingram is in play. You know, he's about due for his 1 to 2 games a year where he has 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Everyone's like, it's the Evan Ingram game.
Yeah.
And then you know, then he disappears. So
Yeah.
this definitely feels like a matchup that's it's possible. And you know, if Tyrann Mathieu's out, pay a little bit of attention to that. The secondary is missing people. That is something Evan Ingram can definitely exploit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to kickers and defense. Awesome. This is a 40-point total here. So we have to consider everybody from this category, unfortunately. Saints defense 5,400. That's way too expensive for me. Now, if Trevor Lawrence is out, that's a whole different story. If Trevor Lawrence is out, we're gonna be doing a lot more. You know, we're gonna be doing a lot more 4-2, 5-1 onslaughts with the Saints. To me, that's what I'm doing. So they're in play. If Trevor Lawrence is out, you know, if he's in, maybe they're in play, you know, but 5,400, dude, that's a little bit much for me. We've seen these higher owned, high priced defenses fail a lot of the times for Showdown, especially if Trevor Lawrence is playing. I do like him to have at least above average game and put up at least like 21 points. So you're relying on a Saints touchdown, basically. Blake Grupe's 5,200. That's the highest I've ever seen a kicker. McManus is 4,800. McManus has a better leg on him. So I'd rather play some McManus at a slight discount, if you call it that. We're used to seeing these kickers between 4,600 to 3,800. So this is too expensive for me. But Jaguars defense 3,800. They had 3 picks last week. Derek Carr, you know, he can be assaulted, and this offensive line is struggling. So Jaguars defense, they get 3 or 4 sacks and they get 1 pick, and they limit this team to, you know, 17 points. 3,800. That's a decent price for that defense, right?
Yeah, I actually don't want the Jaguars defense. It's probably the only thing that I'm considering from this entire grouping. Just everything above that, right? Brandon McManus, I think I'd still be more comfortable trying out Jamal Williams. Even then, punting at 1,800, Kendry Miller, going down to Tim Jones or whatever, right? Like, I think I'm more inclined to be considering my less than $1,000 guys on this slate than I would be on a normal one, just because like there's just no flexibility you're getting out of McManus and Groupie. Just those two specifically. I don't think I'll have any exposure to this group at all, other than the Jags, maybe.
Let's get into our Crown Their Ass segment, our favorite tournament captain on DraftKings.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Kamara. I think the rest of the field will be with you, but it's such a good play that I don't think you can avoid it on DraftKings with PPR. You know, this dude can rack up 10 fantasy points on just dump-offs. So if he gets in the end zone, and, you know, if Jamal Williams is in, I don't care. Like, I actually, like we were talking about earlier, I think it could help Kamara. He'll get less snaps, but I think he'll be more dangerous, and I think they'll have to play him a little bit differently. For me, Michael Thomas, Slant Boy, he's priced so well. And, you know, based off of what I'm seeing on the Sims and the contest Sims, I already had this opinion before I went into really digging deep into the numbers and crunching out like the 5,000 lineups and looking at all these lineups with him at captain. It looks really good. Now he's going to be like what, 3% owned in the captain, 4% owned. So getting 10% of him is all you need. You know, like I'm not going to be 50% Slant Boy. I'm going to be maybe 10 to 15%. And that's still plenty. That's still 3x the field. Who are some other captains that you're looking in? I feel like you got to get some exposure to these Jaguar pass catchers, the 3 dudes, right? You have to have some captain with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Travis Etienne as well. And then Calvin Ridley specifically, I think we know how much upside he has. And then, of course, having Ingram, you can get a little bit of exposure to him at the captain spot. There's a lot of offensive talent in this game, right? And it's all pretty well priced outside of Alvin Kamara and Travis Etienne. I just realized, like, I know I just to comment on this, I switch up on his name. I get confused with Alvin Kamara, right? Like sometimes I call him Kamara, sometimes I call him Kamara. It is what it is.
I think it's
but anyways,
technically
look, man,
Kamara, but Kamara rolls off the tongue better. So fuck it.
Yeah, whatever, man. My bad. I'm sorry, Alvin. If you're watching this, you're my guy, dude. I appreciate you. Anyways, look, there's plenty of guys that you can play in this slate. I think there's plenty of mid-price tiers, and we'll bid with a bunch of them here in a second.
All right, fade of the night here.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
All right, Ellie, you're gonna fade Taysom Hill on this one, and I kind of agree with you on this because look, he's only 10% owned. So if he and he's priced up. So if he randomly has a 15 to 20 point game randomly, he's 10% owned. It's not going to destroy you. It's not going to end your slate. You're probably not going to win first place, but I kind of agree with you here. Tell everybody, remind everybody what we're talking about when we say fade of the night. We're not unchecking them every single time. You probably maybe you'll be under the field. Well, with the 10% Taysom, you probably should uncheck him, I guess, right?
Right. So, I mean, it really kind of depends. If we're being a little bit more bold and say we were trying to fade a guy like Chris Olave, which we are not doing, to be very clear, right? We'd be talking about coming in over, under the field. If the field was projected at 45%, we might be at 35 or 25, just if we're doing MME. If we're only doing one or two lineups, then yeah, we may consider not playing any in those one or two, but I still probably would end up hedging in a single entry or something along those lines with the guy that I was planning to fade. In this case, right, like Taysom, I have no interest in him. I'm gonna let those 10% pay part of the rake. Kind of like what we were talking about defenses the other night, right? It didn't necessarily work out that they ended up in the optimal. And you had one that was 25% owned and one that was 10% owned. Even if there's overlap, that's 20% of the field that's pretty much dead. So, like, you can just use that to your advantage. It doesn't necessarily, and we're not always going to have the most bold takes on fade of the night, right? Sometimes it's just a guy that's just not going to be in my player pool. That's about how I'm going to approach this one.
Sometimes it's a guy named Groupie who's a $5,200 kicker. Sometimes it's DJ Moore when he has the best game that anybody almost has ever had on a Thursday night. Groupie, I spelled his name wrong. Yes, I don't care. It felt right. Expensive ass kicker. I'm not interested. If he gets 5 50-yard field goals, I'll just close the laptop and I'll move on to Sunday Night Football. Let's get into our lineup builds. So we appreciate you guys. Throw us a like on this video. Let's get to 50 likes. We have our Monday night shows exclusively to our YouTube members. So if you guys want to join that, it's $3.99 a month. Just click that join button down below. You'll also get a private Discord inside of our free Discord. Just a private channel there that we'll be sharing lineups. We'll be sharing our chords and everything like that for Monday Night Football. But for this one, let's get into some builds here, dude. So we got to start with Kamara at captain. Let's try to build this $50 slash $100 single entry lineup that we want to do. Let's start with Kamara, right?
Do it.
All right, so we're gonna find out real quick that this is gonna be tough. We're not going to be able to play Travis Etienne in this lineup unless we fade one of the quarterbacks. And because the pricing on these quarterbacks, I kind of want to get them involved in my single entry. Right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do agree with that.
So I think we have to get one. I'm gonna make this rule, or if I'm hand building, I'm going to make sure I have one of these pass catchers from Jacksonville in every lineup. That's, to me, I know that this is a tough defense, it's a tough matchup, but one of these guys is going to go off. At least pay off his salary, and the cheaper they are, the better it's going to be. Kirk, Ridley, Evan Ingram. Where do we go here, man? Is this a Michael Thomas situation too? What's our next step?
Well, I think we go, honestly, I think we go not Michael Thomas. I think we go Christian Kirk for the bigger single entry.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
And, see, this is what I'm talking about, right? If we're building for a normal contest, you're in that range, you got about 4K per spot. I might throw in a kicker at 38, 4K, right? This might be a time I consider that. But now I would be more apt to just throw in a guy like Michael Thomas and fucking play Tim Jones, right? I think that you have more upside and even a higher floor than whatever we're going to get sitting in the $33,000 to $5,000 range.
Yeah, so the question here is, can you punt at a guy at $200-$400 and get a zero out of him? But because you have that salary saver, you're getting so much value and you're getting so much floor. It doesn't even matter really what that guy scores in a single entry. I think that's kind of interesting. Let's try it, dude. Let's put Michael Thomas in here. And let's go down to, you can get Jamal Agnew, you can get Strange, you can get Graham. There's a lot of dudes down here that are kind of interesting. Jones. Who would you go with? Would you go with Jamal Agnew or Jones? Probably, right? Because they're going to be on the field probably the most.
Yeah, I might go Jamal Agnew just because I think he's got a little bit more
rush upside,
like trick play bullshit in him.
Yeah,
right. But again, it doesn't matter if Tim Jones gets the more targets and gets a couple receptions. I think it's fine. So this is what I'm talking about. Like I just think it gives you a little bit of flexibility, even if you get a zero there. Like literally everybody else in this lineup could be good for 15 plus.
Because we're talking about a 40 total. You got potentially 3 touchdowns per team or a couple field goals per team. Like this is not a huge total, and having guys like this who can put up the PPR points and have high floors, that's pretty important here. We got Alvin Kamara at captain, Lawrence, Carr, Kirk, Michael Thomas, and Agnew. Now, this is what we'll dial this in. I don't think that this will be our our final build by any means, but it's kind of an interesting one to start with. So let's do go ahead.
So no, I was just gonna say. So like we were talking about the flexibility off of that. You had $600 there, right? If you wanted to come off of Kirk and go up to Ridley, you could have done that and still saved $200. Yeah. So like that's some of the other stuff there. And then I think you could have even gone like Evan Ingram over Kirk and then still gotten DeKendra Miller instead if you would have preferred. So again, there's just a lot of flexibility if you're okay with playing that mid tier.
So let's try Travis Etienne at captain here. All right. The problem I'm seeing with Etienne, unfortunately, is if you're playing Kamara, if you're playing the quarterbacks, if you're playing some of these pass catchers, if you're playing like Olave especially, he just doesn't fit. So you have to, I want to make him fit. So let's try to do that with him at captain. Let's try to do one with him in the flex as well and see kind of what we have to do. So he's at captain right now. What does this mean if Travis Etienne is at captain in this game? We should probably fade Trevor Lawrence in this particular lineup. We don't have to because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But let's do it because I want to get Kamara in this lineup, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if Etienne's your captain, I think we kind of just lean more towards like a 2-4.
Yeah.
And just see what we can get from the Saints side here. I like that, Derek Carr. And then I don't know, man. Like I think we try and throw in Olave and just see what we can do. It might be tough, but just see what building's like.
So we can get Evan Ingram and then we can punt, or we can go Etienne and Jacksonville kicker. So let's start with Evan Ingram. So we got Etienne, Kamara, Carr, Olave, Ingram, and then we're down at $700. So you got to punt with Agnew, you got to punt with Jones. Probably would be Jones in this, or maybe not. Maybe we can go Jimmy Graham or one of these random New Orleans dudes down here. But let's pull out Ingram, actually. Let's go kicker and see if that does anything for us. McManus, 1,700. So now you got Strange, and you got Jimmy Graham. So this is a punt situation. So this is why I think that Michael Thomas is so important, because Olave, we don't want to punt in this position. So let's go down from Olave and let's go to Michael Thomas. Now, maybe that opens up, that allows us to get, we could get Christian Kirk in this lineup if we wanted to. You got Etienne and Kirk as the only two guys. I feel pretty good about that. I don't care that we don't have Trevor Lawrence in the lineup with one pass catcher and semi pass catcher and Etienne. Let's try it with Kirk. And now at least you have a lot of high upside. You got Etienne, Kamara, Carr, Thomas, Kirk, and then throw Agnew in, throw any of these randos in that you feel comfortable with. I don't feel comfortable with a ton of them, to be honest. This is one of the weaker ones. This isn't a Deontay Hardy situation by any means. But these guys, like I said, open up. They unlock a lot more upside for you in your lineups. So that's a kind of an interesting build. Let's go with Olave here at captain and see what that does for us. See where we're at. So Olave, we want to get Kamara in. I'm not going to build one lineup tonight without Kamara, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what do we do here? We got Olave, Kamara. Do you want to do a 2-4? Do you want to do a 4-2 New Orleans here? Let's do a 2-4.
Yeah, let's do a 2-4, and let's go ahead and throw in T-Law, and let's throw in Calvin Ridley.
All right. Leaves us with 4K each, for these two spots here. So if we wanted to go down to Tank Bigsby or, one of these random guys, we could probably get to Evan Ingram. Let's just try that, right? You want to try Evan Ingram in here? $2,300, so you can get Tank Bigsby. It's not correlated, but I don't really give a shit for a showdown slate. You could do Kendry Miller if Jamal Williams is out. I mean, I know we haven't built with Jamal Williams at all, but if he's out, Kendry Miller will be getting some snaps. You got Strange. This is actually kind of interesting. I think Strange's ownership will be heavily inflated because of that touchdown last week. But you got Olave, Kamara, Olave at captain. Then you got Lawrence, Ridley, Ingram, Strange. Or you can go Tank Bigsby, or you can punt with anybody else. That's kind of interesting. Having these high-priced captains, you're either going to have to fade ETN, or you're going to have to fade one of the quarterbacks. That's what we're seeing here. Let's do the last one here. Let's do our boy Michael Thomas, Slant Boy. See how this works. I feel like he's going to be popular in the captain spot because it just feels good. Like you are able to build a decent lineup here with him, and nothing really feels good with Thomas, but we're able to build something good.
I think he might be a reasonable cash captain too, similar to the Gallup play the other night.
Yeah,
I don't think that was that unreasonable of a play. Now, granted, Gallup was 2,800, but Michael Thomas, if he ends up with 770, man, that's a pretty solid outing for a captain.
So let's try both running backs. Let's try Kamara and ETN in this one and see what we can get out of it. So we're going to have to fade Olave in this one. We're most likely going to have to fade one quarterback. I mean, we could go both quarterbacks and punt down here with Jamal Agnew or one of these dudes.
Again, I'm not going to say no to that.
Thomas, captain, Kamara, ETN, Lawrence, Carr, Agnew. Let's go without Trevor Lawrence in this one. And so we got Carr in there. Let's pull Trevor Lawrence out. Let's get one of his pass catchers. Let's try to get Christian Kirk and see what that gets us. 2,100. Kendry Miller. I don't hate that. If Jamal Williams is out, Kendry Miller in that last spot, and any of these random dudes we've mentioned a million times, Jimmy Graham, Brendan Strange, Agnew, Hasty, any of these dudes. Do you want to go no quarterbacks in this one? Since we got two running backs, you want to try it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Michael Thomas can get there on PPR alone, so we don't need to necessarily have Derek Carr in this lineup. So let's try this. So if that's the case, what do we do? Do we want to get multiple pass catchers without a quarterback? How do we handle a situation where you got no quarterbacks in? What are you thinking? Kickers?
Honestly, I don't know. I think let's go both kickers.
Can we do it? We can do it. We can do it.
Maybe we go one kicker and a tight end like Evan Ingram.
Yeah,
I think there's a little bit of flexibility. I just don't know if
so you can go McManus.
That's not terrible.
This is a 2-4. Thomas at captain, Kamara, ETN, Kirk, McManus, Ingram. I'm not super interested in doing a lot of these zero quarterback builds. In fact, I'm not super interested based on the price of doing one quarterback build. I'd rather just get two of them in if I can, but it won't be like that on every build. So what'd you learn, Ellie? What'd you learn?
It wasn't as tough building as I thought it was going to be, man. I'm really kind of excited for this slate. We got a lot of guys that are going to get a lot of volume on the Saints side of the ball. So I think this one's going to be pretty fun.
So what do we need to keep an eye out for? If Trevor Lawrence, they brought a quarterback up. Now, to me, that just signifies he's going to be the third emergency quarterback. I'm not looking into that too much, but if he's out, let's talk about this. How are you handling that? Are you going just a lot of 4-2s with the Saints, a lot of 5-1s? Is there a chance that you get some Beathard? He's not that much cheaper than Trevor Lawrence, so I'm not super interested.
Yeah, man. Look, I think you can maybe make a couple, like, I don't know, Hail Mary lineups with Beathard or stacks for Jags that way. You're probably better off not doing that. The Saints defense has been pretty good this year. No reason to think that they're going to all of a sudden start sucking against another backup. That's really kind of my thoughts there. But hop in the Discord. We'll obviously be chopping it up if we get some crazy news. If that ends up happening, we'll let you know what our builds look like. I know Saber Sim is a good tool to use. We'll have updates on kind of what the sims are showing. And you know, we'll be able to provide some feedback from there. But again, like, we'll see if it's even worth playing at that point if Trevor Lawrence doesn't play.
That's true. I'm gonna have to think about that. I'm gonna have to feel it out about how degenerate I'm feeling at the moment. Let's just be honest. We know we're both gonna play something, but it's probably not just gonna be not as much. All right, guys, join that Discord. That's free. Scan that below if you're watching on your computer or your TV. Or go jump down in the description. You can click that button. It'll take you right into the Discord. And like I said, that's free. We will see you guys for Sunday Night Football.